Joining me now is Feodor Snagovsky with the Department of Political Science, University of Alberta. He joins us tonight from Edmonton. Theo, how would you describe the campaign style of both Smith and Notley?
I think both parties have been focusing pretty heavily on the other. So Rachel Notley's been focusing on Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith's been focusing pretty heavily on Rachel Notley. But I think both of them have been running a pretty negative campaign as far as voters are concerned. Notley's been focusing on Smith's perceived weaknesses and some of the statements she's made. Smith has been focusing on Notley's record as a premier. I think the tone has been pretty negative on both sides.
Is it reasonable to say that Notley had to try to appeal to more conservatives, but that Smith had to appeal to a much broader band of voters in general?
I think it's true to say that the NDP had to win over former PC voters because for a long time in this province, the PC party had a monopoly. And so it makes sense that if the NDP was ever going to win government in its own right, it was going to have to expand that coalition to include people who formerly voted for right-of-center parties. Now, in 2015, when they won their first government mandate, they won, not to take anything away from their own strengths, but they won because of a split on the right between the PCs and the Wild Rose. Now that they don't have that split on the right anymore, they're going to have to win over sort of center-right voters that otherwise might have voted for the old PC party, but that may perceive Danielle Smith as too ideologically extreme.
Okay, so what did you see Notley do in the last 4 weeks to bring in voters from that section that she needs to lure them from?
One thing that she's been saying in interviews, in op-eds, is asking conservative voters to lend her their vote. So, not saying you should become a lifelong NDPer, you shouldn't necessarily, you're not signing up for a lifetime marriage here. Just lend me your vote in this election because I will do a better job than my opponent will do.
Interesting. What do you think of that tactic?
I think it makes a lot of sense. A lot of people in this province have an aversion to voting for the NDP because of the sort of identity they hold. They see themselves as conservatives. And as conservatives, they should vote for the Conservative Party, whether that's the PCs, the Wild Rose, the UCP. And, expanding that minimum winning coalition for the NDP makes a lot of sense. Identity is really hard to move, and it's only going to happen after repeated elections where the NDP is competitive.
Okay, so what did Smith do to make herself available and more palatable to a larger Alberta population?
Arguably not that much. She's probably focused more on attacking Rachel Notley and saying, well, we can't afford 4 more years of NDP government. The last time they were in government, the economy tanked, things were not going that well. Pretty conveniently leaving out the fact that global oil prices tanked during, that mandate, 2015 to 2019. So I don't think it's, any honest analysis of what happened during the NDP's previous governing term it was entirely to do with them. But I think, she's been on the defensive a lot of the time, trying to convince voters that some of the things she said in so many cases the recent past about healthcare, about other things, it doesn't represent who she is today.
Okay, you're right about hitting those roadblocks. One of them that she hit happened in 2021, a radio show interview she did that came back to bite her. Let's have a listen to that. We'll come back in a second.
I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the Netflix series, How to Become a Tyrant, but it starts with Hitler in the first episode, and it's absolutely appalling and shocking.
Yeah.
How and it's one academic says, I know so many people would say, and they must have filmed this before COVID, so many people say that they would not have succumbed to the charms of a tyrant, somebody telling them that they have all the answers. And he said, I guarantee you would. And that's the test here, is we've seen it. We have 75% of the public who say, not only hit me, but hit me harder and keep me away from those dirty unvaxxed. And even on the cover of the Toronto Star, saying, I want people who are unvaxxed to get sick and die, and I don't even care. I don't want them to get treatment. We're already hearing about people being denied treatment for not being vaccinated, being taken off the organ donor list. What are we becoming?
All right, so she's comparing the people who got vaccinated to Nazi supporters, and it was comment, as mentioned, she made in 2021, which she has apologized for. I'm wondering, was that apology enough?
It depends on who you ask, right? I mean, that sort of thing doesn't. It's not. That's not ancient past, right? That's not ancient history. That's not a grainy video from, something she said confidentially to a friend 10 years ago. That's really recent, and I think it's a real stick in the eye of people who took COVID seriously, of people who cared about the pandemic. And the clip immediately after the one you showed was her talking about poppies, talking about how she didn't wear a poppy because they had quote unquote ruined it for her. That, it doesn't make sense for her to do this. And with one video, she managed to tick off people who took the pandemic seriously and maybe have lost people during the pandemic, lost loved ones during the pandemic, and veterans and people who remember the sacrifices made by the forces in various conflicts over the years. So I think that kind of apology is easy to make if it wasn't part of a broader record of saying this sort of stuff.
Yeah, there was the ethics investigation, which was even more recent. The commissioner finding that she violated the ethics code. Did she manage to turn the page on that one?
I'm glad you asked about that, because it's something that hasn't received very much attention, that regardless of who wins government today, and we could be waiting a little while to find out who wins government, but that sort of thing really matters. Governments come and go. We're going to have NDP governments in the future. We're going to have UCP governments in the future. Other parties will emerge. That's all fine. But what remains in the interim is democracy. And if we lose the rule of law, if we lose democracy, we don't get it back. And that is critically important to keep between elections. So, has she done enough to sort of remedy those concerns? Not yet, and we'll see what happens after the election. I don't think it's mattered very much in terms of election dynamics per se, because that report came on the heels of a bunch of investigative journalism on this call. The full call between her and Art Pawlowski was leaked. A lot of people heard that for themselves, and that happened before the formal writ period. So in many ways, people's views about this conversation about whether she broke the law was already baked in. But, regardless of who wins government tomorrow, we should really take this seriously. We should hold our politicians accountable and make sure that they don't perceive winning an election as a mandate to abuse government, to do whatever they want, to abuse the rule of law and democracy for their own political gain.
Let me ask you about Notley then. Did she have any stumbles along the way?
I think Rachel Notley probably had a number of missed opportunities in this election. And again, it's easy to look in retrospect, and I'm not necessarily privy to all of the data that they have, but the conflict of interest report dropped the day of the debate. And it's hard to open things up on the day of, and things were already agreed, but she could have done a better job of litigating the fact that the premier has been accused by the ethics commissioner of breaking the law. The other missed opportunity, I think, for both leaders is to talk about climate change. We live in a province where wildfires have been going on the entire writ period. And even putting aside the fact that a lot of people have been displaced, lost personal property, people have been in personal danger, for people in Alberta and Calgary, for Edmonton and Calgary, for other major cities, the air has been unbreathable for long stretches of time during this campaign. And it seems a bit incongruous with reality that neither leader has mentioned the fact that climate change is going on. And at some stage after the election, will really be looking for our leaders to have adult conversations with Albertans about what happens now that we're living in a climate change reality. Alberta is at the center of the climate change debate in Canada. And if we don't start taking steps to mitigate the effects of climate change, they are going to hit us harder and harder, every year after.
So more of missed opportunities rather than stumbles along the way. Feodor Snagovsky, I've got to leave it there. Thanks very much for sharing your time.